is in fact the case that free will doesn't exist. And we may feel very nihilistic towards that, but as a wise man once said, facts don't care about your feelings. And
from the current scientific research, there are studies that shows that only 5% of about 5% of our cognition is conscious. And I think Alex puts it very nicely in this follow-up point.
The very mechanism that I think is responsible for eliminating the possibility of free will, that is, the drives that make people do what they do, like I say, do exactly that. Make people do what they do. They make them get out of bed in the morning. Why do you get out of bed and go and make your breakfast if there's no free will? So you go and get breakfast because there's no free will and something is driving you to do that that's outside of your control.
For sure.
But Ben has a rather unusual response to this because he believes that there is free will. And this is his justification for it.
You say that there is no free will.
That's right.
And what I'm saying to you is you don't act that way.
If you think about it a little, you now realize that what Ben said is not as far-fetched as it looks, because obviously if we have all these constraints, free will is not supposed to be possible. But then Friedrich Nietzsche described the truth as something that supports life. A typical example that shows that the truth is not necessarily what is logical is exposure therapy. The tricky part about exposure therapy is the fact that its mechanism involves exposing you to what you're afraid of. That seems like a contradiction. So if you're afraid of heights, exposure therapy exposes you to heights. And for some reasons, that exposure helps you to conquer the fear. So now, the reason why I brought this up is because that is an illogical conclusion. I don't think it's possible to come to that conclusion logically. So what I mean is that I don't think that it's a logical form of reasoning to think that exposing yourself to what is giving you trouble is going to take the trouble away. It doesn't make sense. But it is true because it works. So before we continue, please consider leaving a like if you're enjoying the video so far, or if I've said something that you agree with, just leave a like, support the channel. I just started and I need all the help I can get. And if you like the way I talk about things, please consider subscribing so that you see me more often. I would really appreciate this because I actually enjoy doing these talks. Like, this is actually the only place I come to have these talks because a lot of my friends don't find this interesting. So I just come here to just air what I feel and what I truly find fascinating to think about. So it will just take 2 seconds. Just hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you very much.
Wait a minute, what? Away we go.
So now you can now see that in the final analysis, especially in this case, the truth is not based on logical reasoning. It's based on what works. So there was a guy that had a fear of heights. And what did he do to overcome that fear? That is the truth about overcoming the fear of heights. It's not necessarily the logical conclusion of how you think you should be able to overcome the fear of heights. I don't know if that makes sense. You can now see that what Ben is saying is actually not as illogical as it sounds, because the truth in a lot of scenarios, in a lot of cases, is what works. It's not necessarily what is logical. But this also comes with a lot of problems because this threatens the idea of objective truth. If the truth is how well we understand and can manipulate our environment, if that is what the truth is in the final analysis, then that means that is just what it is. It's just our interaction with the environment, how well we can do it. We call that truth. And that tallies because when we come up with things like scientific truths, like laws, E is equal to mc squared, like that is the relationship of how human beings can interact with energy. It really doesn't say anything about energy. It just means that if a human being has an issue that has to do with energy, if he combines this thing like this, he can predict the outcome. That's really what it means. It really doesn't speak of an objective thing that exists as E equals to mc squared. I don't know if you get what I'm trying to say. I actually found Nietzsche's description of the truth actually very compelling because it tallies. So his analysis of the truth states that the truth is the will to power. That's just what the truth is. And I actually think that is plausible because if you look at what our main motivation is for finding the truth, it's always a form of control. So it's always, there's a problem and we're trying to solve that problem. That is what we pursue and end up finding things that we call the truth. I don't know if that makes sense. So that implies that truth is a problem-solving mechanism. That's just what emerges when we try to solve a problem. Now, of course, that doesn't exhaust the definition of truth. Obviously, truth can be an objective fact, something that a lot of people can observe and verify that it exists, like the way this mic exists. The only reason why I think it's true that this mic exists is because a lot of people can observe it. So there's also a definition of truth that accounts for objective reality, like that accounts for like objective facts, like things that everybody can verify. But what that could mean is that we may not have free will, but it could be true that we have free will. Because if we act like there is free will, it works. Now, considering all what I've said so far, it seems to me like something could be actual, like could be factual, but not true. If you define truth as what promotes humanity. So putting that to free will, it could mean that we really don't have free will. But then it's not true that we don't have free will. Because if we act like we don't have free will, it doesn't promote our human goals. So what that means is that if a society acts like, even you, if I treat you like you don't have free will, like if you say something to me, I'm like, that's just what your programming tells you to say to me, you get really offended and you can really hurt me because of that. The idea that we don't have free will might be factual, like it might be factual, it might be a logical conclusion, but at the same time, it might not be true because it doesn't support the progress of humanity. It's something like that. So I think there's a way that we can have both cases. That's just what I think. So, but what do you really think? Do you really think that we have free will? Or do you think that the idea that the truth is just what promotes human flourishing? Do you think that that conclusion is valid? Like, do you think it's valid? Whatever the case, just let me know in the comment section. And as usual, like and subscribe if you haven't already. And see you guys in the next video. Peace.